Once again, welcome. My name is Hopi Randall, and I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid here at YDS. It is a joy to welcome you this morning to part one of our virtual open house. I certainly wish that we would be able to host you on our beautiful campus, but we are still not out of the woods yet. And so we need to follow a university protocol to make sure that we stay healthy. And hopefully by next year, we would be able to host you on this campus. It is a critical time in our world, in our nation, for the exploration of theological studies. There's no time like the present for the gifts that you offer to and as an answer to the world's needs. It is also a wonderful time to be exploring YDS. We are doing great things in our institution. And I am going to invite our dean, Gregory Sterling, who's going to come and greet you in his own way and talk a little bit about those great things that are happening here at YDS. So once again, welcome. And I'm going to turn it over to Dean Sterling.
Thank you very much, Hopi, and a very warm welcome to each one of you. It is great to have you with us, even if it's virtual. It's a beautiful day here today, just like it is every day. Well, maybe not quite every day, but it is a beautiful day, and we do have lovely weather for a good part of the year. Thinking about where you'll do your graduate work is a life-changing decision for many people. It's of critical importance, and it's of critical importance for us to attract the kinds of students who will help transform our society. This school is predicated on two fundamental principles, and I like to illustrate these with the architecture of the school. Our school, and I'll give you a slide and show you this in a few minutes, is modeled on the University of Virginia, where the library stands at the very center of Mr. Jefferson's campus. In our quad, you will find Marquand Chapel. And what's not immediately obvious when you first walk onto this campus is that the main entrance to the library is directly beneath Marquand Chapel. And I like to say that we have intellect on the ground floor and faith above it. But we value both intellect and faith. This is a graduate school. It is part of Yale University. We make no apologies for the rigor. And you might say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, just for example, it's not at all uncommon for faculty to ask students to read a book a week for their class. But that's just a standard kind of a load. So you will be worked very hard and rigorously academically. We're known for that, and we don't intend to change that. But we're also a community of faith, and we take that seriously. So Marquand is in the center. That is symbolic, and it represents the hub of our community and community life. I would like for a few minutes now to talk about three major initiatives that we have underway that I think will be important to all of you as you think about where you might like to attend graduate school. And so I'm going to share some slides with you. And then as I do, if you have a question on any aspect of what I've presented, there should be a Q&A button on your screen, whether it's at the bottom or the top. It's in different places with different computers and software. But please type in your question as we go along, and I will leave time at the end to respond to questions and try to address as many of your questions as I can. So without anything more, let me turn to some of the major initiatives that we have underway here at Yale Divinity School. And now you can see if you've never been here, the Divinity School from an aerial view, and you see Marquand Chapel right in the very center of what we call the quad, which is this whole area here. And then these are the back quads back here. This is all classroom and office space, as is this. This is the library over in here underneath, and then over through this building. So let me talk just about 3 current priorities that I think will be important to you, and say just a couple things about each one of them. Our first priority for the last 10 years has been student financial aid. This will give you an idea of what we've been able to do. You can see our tuition on the top line. You can see what I call our standard aid package on the second line, and you can see the gap. Our goal has been to reach full tuition for everyone with demonstrated need, and that's 90 to 95% of the people who come to YDS, and we will make that goal this next year. So the letters that go out in the spring to extend offers to matriculate at YDS will be the most generous letters we've ever been able to offer. And I'm very pleased. A lot of people have worked very hard to do that. And one of the things I will say is we'll continue to expand our financial aid by trying to address living expenses. We will do that as we're able to. But our policy is always to raise the aid for everybody. So when you see these amounts for tuition scholarships go up, they're not going up just for entering students, they've gone up for everyone. And one of the reasons why we do this, and one reason why we use need-based financial aid, is because we want a full student body of exceptionally talented people. If we were to use a strict merit system, we could make some very nice offers to a few people and others wouldn't have that. And what would happen is that we would end up with a fairly significant gap in abilities in students. We prefer to have very talented students across the board. And that matters to you because when you're here, you will learn not only from the faculty, but you'll also learn from fellow students. And that becomes of critical importance. So that's just a word more on that as time goes on. The second major commitment we've had is to forge a diverse community. And in 2015, we developed a strategic plan that involved 5 different steps of how we would go about that. We have worked assiduously at this. We tripled the number of faculty, we doubled the number of staff, and doubled the number of students from underrepresented groups. We've added things to our curriculum, like a new program in Latinx studies, a Black Church Studies program. We have charged the curriculum committee with asking faculty to make sure that every syllabus pays attention to diversity whenever that is appropriate. We sponsored all kinds of co-curricular events, and I could describe those in detail, but the list gives you an idea. We've tried to take this with utter seriousness, and we've also changed the iconography of our walls. Now, this has been underway since 2015, but in 2020, in the summer of 2020, we realized this wasn't enough. And so we've done several things in recent years. We appointed a new associate dean, Lynn Sullivan, to be in charge of diversity, equity, inclusivity, and belonging here at YDS. She had been in the student affairs office. We have elevated her to an associate dean level. And I appointed a task force chaired by Professors Willie Jennings and Laura Nasrallah to draft a new strategic plan for diversity here at YDS. They submitted their report this last summer. We held a town hall about a little over a week ago. And we have developed a new plan, which we have now finalized, and we're going to begin announcing the response to the recommendations to the task force very shortly. So I want you to know that we take this with real seriousness. And I hope all of you do as well, that the challenge is not simply a matter of representation or changing the curriculum. Those are absolutely vital and sine qua nons, but it's to recognize that we as a society have to make some fundamental changes. I think to the conference that Yale had this last weekend entitled Yale and Slavery, and one of the comments made by two of the presenters was that in early America, we had Protestant supremacy. And when African Americans were converted to Christianity in significant numbers, Protestant superiority became white superiority. Or another way of thinking of this is, in the words of the convener of this conference, David Blight, who's a professor of history here, in one of his most important books, he talks about the fact that after the Civil War, we made great efforts to unite the North and the South, but we did not address the problem of the formerly enslaved people. And we're still living with that, the afterlives of slavery today. That's what we're trying to address here at YDS. The third thing that I want to mention is the living village. So let me give you another aerial shot and explain. This is the third location of Yale Divinity School at Yale. We began as a distinct unit in 1822, downtown just north of Connecticut Hall, then moved to where Hopper College is today, just across the street from Battelle Chapel, right off the green, if that means anything to you. And then in 1932, we moved up here to the top of the hill and to what was formerly the mansion of the Winchesters, Oliver Winchester of Winchester repeating firearm fame or infamy, depending on your perspective. And that house had passed to some others in the meantime. The university purchased this, and we built this quad. In 1957, we built 3 apartment complexes. At that time, they were known as married student housing. The students called them the Fertile Crescent because of the number of children born in those apartments. They were built with a 40-year life expectancy. And if you can do any math at all, you realize they're past that expectancy. So they're not economically worth repairing, to be honest. They have fresh paint. We keep them up as best we can, but structurally, they're not worth repairing. So what we are proposing to do is to replace these with what we call the living village. And we have 4 motives for this. One motive is when the quad was renovated in 2000 through 2017, all of the residences were removed. That is, students used to live here in these quads. I'm sitting in an office that was once a residence for students. Some faculty also lived here. But as the school expanded, we needed classroom space and we needed office space. So those rooms were eliminated. There was a women's dorm back here and a deanery back here that were torn down. And the married student housing became student housing with 84 apartments. But what we want to do is to bring this back in as close a proximity to the quad as we can, to try to instill the sense of community that people had when they lived on the quad. If you look at old pictures, you see people playing volleyball out here, etc. So that's one of our goals. Another goal is to create the possibility of intentional communities within the living village. But both of those are for communities. And the reason this is so important to us is right now our society's social fabric is moving like this. We train people to bring communities back together like that, like this. And we want to model what it means to live in community in your experience here. So that's our first motive. The second motive is to give you subsidized housing, to make it affordable for you to live in New Haven. The third thing, which I'm going to discuss in a little bit of detail, is to make an eco-theological statement. And the fourth is to make a statement about inclusivity. And I'll talk about each of those now just for a minute. We've decided to build all of these buildings by using the Living Building Challenge standard. The symbol for the living building is a flower, and it's symbolic because a flower grows in one place. It can't move anywhere. It has to take all of its nutrients in that place. And when it dies, it gives something back to its soil. So the idea is to move well beyond what we know today as LEED certified buildings. There are a number of different building standards, but to use the most progressive and advanced standard for sustainable building known today, the Living Building Challenge. And the idea is, if you think of this as being meeting building code where things are safe, it still has a heavy negative impact on the environment. LEED certification, if you go to platinum LEED, such as Croon Hall, just down the hill from us here, that has a much lower negative impact, but it still has a negative impact. Yale uses gold LEED as its basic standard. We want to move over to this side so that the result is positive. And that's why we're using the Living Building Challenge. The other thing that I want to say just briefly is we want this to make a statement of inclusivity. Let me explain. When you looked at our quad, if you've ever seen the University of Virginia, and I mentioned that we were modeled on the University of Virginia, the two architects, Delano and Aldrich, were very clear about using Mr. Jefferson's campus as their model for the quad in 1932. When we first met with the architects, I said to them, we have a beautiful quad, and it really is beautiful, but it looks to the past and to a past that was not always inclusive. It was exclusive. The living building must complement LE, the quad, but it must look to the future and make a statement of inclusivity. One of the ways we're trying to do that is the designers for the Living Village are the same design team that designed the memorial for enslaved labor at the University of Virginia. We have charged them very explicitly to ensure that the Living Village will make a statement of inclusivity, and they're taking this to heart. So what will the Living Village look like? Here is the full plan. Just to give you an idea, if you're thinking back, the three buildings were here, here, and here. This was the parking lot. We are in the process of launching phase one, and this is broken down into phases 1A, which are these four buildings and the power plant, and 1B, which are the extensions here. This, to build all this, would give us roughly 60 to 65 new units. There are two formats that people are thinking of. This has not been decided. The designers are working as we speak. We should have a design by January, but one way is to think about dropping people off here. If you're just visiting, parking would be over here. There would still be a street here. Another design is to build a road that would go like this and be one way and allow people to drop people off here and come into the main quad here. Now, this may not mean a lot to you if you've never been here, but I can tell you that it will revolutionize our campus. The campus hasn't seen these yet. We want it to complement. So the gables that are such a dominant part of our existing quad will be repeated, but the roofs could be quite different, and different so that they can capture all of the solar energy that's possible. These buildings must capture and generate more than the power that they consume. They have to capture and process all of their own water. They have to handle all of their own waste, and they cannot be built out of anything known to pose a threat to human life or any other life. Those are some of the requirements for the living building. When this is built, it will be the world's largest academic living building challenge project. We hope to have 2 chapels on it, and they would be the first. We would be potentially the first living campus challenge certified campus, and we'd be the first Ivy League living building challenge project. So there are a lot of firsts. This is a project that we think will challenge not just people at Yale, but will challenge people throughout the world as they think about building residential structures on college or university campuses. So those are 3 major initiatives. Let me take some of your questions. Is living expense scholarship? Is there living expense? That is what we're working on. And until we formulate the budget in its final form for fiscal year 23, I'm not going to make a statement because that's a promise, but I will say, yes, we're working very hard on that, and they will probably have to be phased in. That is, if you think about what is the cost, we have roughly 300 full-time students. That requires a $60 million endowment. $60 million doesn't just grow on a tree. It takes us a while to raise that much money and generate that kind of income. But we are working very diligently on that, and I think we'll have good news this spring. Another question, and I think this is one between that Hopi's saying, Andover Newton and the Institute of Sacred Music, what are the differences and similarities? That I think Hopi's going to address that. I will say very briefly that we have 3 units within the school. They have different relationships. It's a complex relationship. You would be a Yale Divinity School student. Your degree would be from Yale. But we have these other entities that enrich our lives immensely, and we're very pleased to have them. Are students expected to be students full-time and not have the responsibility of a full-time job? And the answer is yes, we do. We are set up to be a residential campus. We do allow for some part-time students here, but that's a relatively smaller number. Our intention is to have a full-time student body. So when I say we have 300 full-time students, we probably have another 20 to 30 who are part-time, if you just want a rough estimate. Right now, we have 327 students with a goal of 300 full-time. What percentage of Indian Christian students do we give a place to? Well, we don't have quota systems, but we do have and track very carefully all students from underrepresented groups, or what today we would call BIPOC students. And we have a number of Indigenous students. In fact, we have a recently formed a student group for Indigenous students. We have adopted a land statement for the school. Yale University has a land statement, but the Divinity School added a second paragraph to the Yale University land statement to recognize them. So we have a very active Indigenous student group. And I think I'll let Hopi or Antonio give you some statistics. It's not a large group right now, but they're very present and very visible. What is the expected completion date of the Living Village? We expect to break ground on phase 1 in February of 23 and have occupancy in the summer of 24. So if you come in the fall of 22 and are an MDiv student, you could live in the Living Village. If you come in the fall of 22 and are an MAR student, you'll see the construction. But unless you do a third year, you won't have a chance to live in the Living Village. What is the estimate of the average cost of room and board for 1 year in New Haven? The average cost for a single student for the year is roughly $22,000 to $24,000 to cover everything to live in New Haven. That is what we are going to turn to next and try to help address and reduce. Would a 50-year-old fit in your campus? And the answer is unequivocally yes. I have a good friend who just retired as a physician, and I'll just leave it at that. He practiced for many years in Greenwich, and he is here in his retirement working on a degree, and I see him all of the time on campus. So we have a wide range of people. It's not at all uncommon to have people who are second career individuals. The majority of our students are coming from their undergraduate career. The average age of a student is right at, I think it's 30 years old right now. It changes a little bit, but the range at commencement, I always like to give the youngest, the age of the youngest and the age of the oldest. And it's almost always something like we have a wunderkind who is 17 years old, graduating with their master's degree. And we have my hero, a 72-year-old graduating with their Master of Divinity. So we have a span. So yes, you would be quite welcome here. And what is the approximate number of hours per week that full-time students can reasonably spend on work outside and still keep a keen focus? We have a limit here if you work on campus, and we do have jobs for people here on campus, of 10 to 12 hours is what you have to keep it to. You can work this out, and I'll let you, this is what you'd work out with Hopi. So it is expensive to live here, but there are ways to help. And I'll mention also that if you're in one of the programs doing an internship, we pay for those internships at $5,000 a summer. We're also trying to create some other summer opportunities for our students in which we can support you. So we don't want finances to be the deterrent for you to come to this school. And what if you want to join ministry work after MDiv? What support does the university provide? Well, our support is across the board for everybody, but we have very good relationships with a large number of different churches. We have multiple denominational studies programs, and you will find help through the Alumni Association. You will also have a chance to have at least one internship here, but you'll be connected with a lot of people. You'll find that belonging to Yale will pay dividends to you for the rest of your life. I can assure you of that. Well, I've tried to answer as many questions as I could. Thank you for your questions. I wish you the very best. I hope that I can personally greet you in August and welcome you to the campus. We are in person in classes, and I hope by next August, we will be past the pandemic, maybe not completely, but enough so that it feels that we're under normal circumstances. I wish you the best. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much, Dean Sterling, for taking some time with us this morning.